What do you know? I missed it again. Um, Hello. Hold on. Let me do one thing first. But no one's here anyways, so that works for me. Okay. Hello. So I don't know why it's so like I've missed it like the past 2 days in a row. Um, I was like watching Wally with my mom, and it was like off, and then I was like, "Good God, what time is it?" Which is how it happens every time. Is I go, wait a minute, something's wrong here. Um, and actually, the reason I was like thinking of it was because I like, sorry, because Eve in Wally was reminding me of Cathy. Of she was just like spinning around and she hit like Wally and Wally like flew into the wall. And I was like, wow, that seems like a real Cathy thing to do. And then I was like, oh shit. I'm supposed to be reading about Cathy right now. Uh, so yeah, that's what happened. Um, Wally's really cool. It was the first time they like I just learned this in one of my classes last quarter. But it was the first time that Pixar like employed apparently a real cinematographer to do the shot setup of it, and it's Roger Deakins, who's like one of the best cinematograpers. Cinematography. I still want to make a short titled Cinematography about some little creature who I don't know wants to be a filmmaker. There's my pitch for cinematography. uh, yeah, so like they programmed and Roger Deakins was like, yeah, like programming in like jiggles and like just things that we as humans do when we operate a camera, but doesn't happen when you're like, I can just make this camera perfect. Um, I'm talking about like how Wally was a groundbreaking film. Um, like that they employed a real cinematographer to do the cinematography. His name is Roger Deakins. He's super cool. Um, but it's just like cool to watch all of these like little like jerks and stuff because I'm specifically looking for them. So you don't see them. If you're not like, I'm watching the corner of the screen to see if it's fluctuating or not. But it's just been really cool to start rewatching. Uh, and it's also so interesting because I don't know if it was before or after the Disney Pixar acquisition. I think it was before. Wait, I meant after. But it's like this incredibly anti capitalist film made by one of the biggest capitalist companies. So I don't like it's so interesting how like some of the art that comes out of Disney is so like almost anti-Disney. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Wally so far. But let's have some thoughts on Wuthering Heights. So yesterday, yesterday was a same guy. Oh, interesting. Okay, this is a long. Oh my god, it's a big boy chapter. We'll see how far we get. We'll see what happens. All right. Yesterday in Wuthering Heights, what happened? Okay, so I think basically Heathcliff, the what's his face, Hindley's out. So Heathcliff comes home and is like, "Cool, Cathy and I get to hang out tonight." And Cathy's like, "But like, what if he came home?" And Heathcliff's like, "I don't think he's gonna come home. Like, just cool it. I just want to sit inside and like hang out with my friend." And Cathy's like, "But he could come home." And Heathcliff's like, "Did you fucking invite Edgar Linton over?" And Cathy's like, "It's none of your business who I invite over. And anyways, like, I don't want you around when he comes." And Heathcliff's like, "Fuck you." And he leaves. Um, and then Nellie, who's been instructed not to leave Cathy alone with young Mr. Linton, is like cleaning stuff in the corner. And Cathy's like, you can go too. And Nellie's like, I don't think I will. And Cathy, and then Edgar comes in, and Cathy's like, bitch, you gotta go. And Nellie's like, no, I don't think I will. And then Cathy attacks Nellie. Like, well, she pinches her. And Nellie's like, yo, don't pinch me. And Cathy's like, I didn't pinch you. And Nellie's like, then how did this massive welt on my arm get here? And Edgar's like, ooh, girl, don't pinch your servants. And Cathy gets so upset that she smacks Nellie. Nellie's like, bitch. And then Edgar's like, bitch. And he starts to leave. But Nellie is like standing her ground. So Cathy goes for baby Hindley, Hareton, and starts hitting the like child. And Edgar's like, you can't do that. And so he gets in the way, and then Cathy starts hitting Edgar. And Edgar's like, you can't do that. And so Edgar leaves. Nellie's in the kitchen. She shouts out the window. She's like, keep going, bitch. Don't come back. And Edgar's like, but she's so hot. And there's no other woman in a 30-mile radius that aren't my sister. And so Edgar turns around, and it's real bad. So Edgar turns around, and like he and Cathy are like, oh, we love each other. And everyone else is like, no. Everyone else reading the book is like, no. I'm ready for the thing. Look, I'm drinking water. What a surprise. What kind of Edgar Allan Poe? Who knows? Okay, in another surprise turn of events, I am drinking water today. It's like I'm mad at Edward. You know, I'm not mad at Edward anymore. I was upset for a while because he was a liar and a cheat. But I don't know. He sort of got what he deserved. You know who really reminds me of Edward is the dude in The Corpse Bride. Victor in The Corpse Bride really reminds me of Edward, from specifically the Hugh Grant. It was like Hugh Laurie, Hugh whatever other Hughs there are, Jackman, like all the Hughs. Why are there so many Hughs? I've never met a single Hugh in my life. Who are you, Hugh? Who are Hugh? Took me too long to get there. Okay, let's do this. Wuthering Heights, Chapter 9. Roll that back. Who are you? Wuthering Heights, Volume 1, Chapter 9. He entered, vociferating oaths dreadful to hear, and caught me in the act of stowing away. Oh, shit. Okay, we're good. Of stowing his son away in the kitchen cupboard. Hareton was impressed with a wholesome. Oh, I'm sorry. It was wholesome. It was not wholesome. Hareton was impressed by it with. Hareton was impressed with a wholesome terror of encountering either his wild beast's fondness or his madman's rage. For in one he ran a chance of being squeezed and kissed to death, and in the other of being flung into the fire or dashed against the wall. And the poor thing remained perfectly quiet wherever I chose to put him. There, I've found it out at last, cried Hindley, pulling me back by the skin of the neck like a dog. By heaven and hell, you've sworn between you to murder that child. I know how it is now that he is always out of my way. But with the help of Satan, I shall make you swallow the carving knife, Nellie. Oh my God. You needn't laugh, for I've just crammed Kenneth head downmost in the Black Horse Marsh, and 2 is the same as 1. And I want to kill some of you, and oh God, I shall have no rest till I do. Good Lord. But I don't like the carving knife, Mr. Hindley, I answered. It has been cutting red herrings. I'd rather be shot, if you please. Good God, Nellie has balls of steel. um, my lord. You'd rather be damned, he said, and so you shall. No law in England can hinder a man from keeping his house decent, and mine's abominable. Open your mouth. Holy shit. This is terrifying. Frankenstein, who? He held the knife in his hand and pushed its point between my teeth. But for my part, I was never much afraid of vagaries. I spat out and affirmed it tasted detestably. I would not take it on any account. Oh, said he, releasing me. I see that hideous little villain is not Hareton. I beg your pardon now. If it be, he deserves flaying alive for not running to welcome me, and for screaming as if I were a goblin. Oh my God. Good Lord. Unnatural cub, come hither. Oh Lord, I don't like where this is going. I'll teach thee to impose a good-hearted, deluded father. Now don't think the lad would be oh my God. Don't you think the lad would be handsomer cropped? It makes a dog fiercer, and I love something fierce. Get me scissors, a thin, fierce trim. Besides, it's infernal affectation. Devilish conceit it is to cherish our ears. He's gonna cut off this kid's ears? But he's a baby. To cherish our ears, we need those. Oh my God. All right. Okay, it seems like things are gonna go badly. Okay, maybe not. I think we might be okay. Extremely fuck this guy. Okay. Sorry, I read ahead, but I felt like we needed that. Where was I? Okay. We're asses enough without them. Hush, child, hush. Well then, it is my darling. Dry thy eyes. Wished? It looks like wished. Dry thy eyes. There's a joy. Kiss me. What? It won't? Kiss me, Hareton. Damn thee, kiss me. By God, as if I would rear such a monster. As sure as I'm living, I'll break the brat's neck. Oh my God, why are you a human? Poor Hareton was squalling and kicking in his father's arms with all his might, and redoubled his yells when he carried him upstairs and lifted him over the banister. Oh my God. I cried out that he would frighten the child into fits and ran to rescue him. As I reached them, Hindley leaned forward on the rails to listen to a noise below, almost forgetting what he had in his hands. Who is that? He asked, hearing someone approaching the stairs foot. I leant forward also for the purpose of signaling to Heathcliff, whose step I recognized not to come further. And at the instant when my eye quitted Hareton, he gave a sudden spring, delivered himself. Oh my God. Oh God. Okay, we're good. Okay, sorry. And at the instant when my eye quitted Hareton, he gave a sudden spring, delivered himself from the careless grasp that held him, and fell. There was scarcely time to experience a thrill of horror before we saw that the little wretch was safe. Heathcliff arrived underneath just at the critical moment. By a natural impulse, he arrested his descent, and setting him on his feet, looked up to discover the author of the accident. A miser who has parted with a lucky lottery ticket for 5 shillings and finds next day he has lost in the bargain £5,000, could not show a blanker countenance than he did on beholding the figure of Mr. Earnshaw above. It expressed, plainer than words could, the intensest anguish at having made himself the instrument of thwarting his own revenge. God. Had it been dark, I dare say he would have tried to remedy the mistake by smashing Hareton's skull on the steps, but we witnessed his salvation, and I was presently below with my precious charge pressed to my heart. Something has got to be done about Hareton. And I think it's poison? I'm good with poison. Are we good with poison? All in favor of going back in time and poisoning Hareton? Okay, we'll see what happens. Hindley descended more leisurely, sobered and abashed. It is your fault, Ellen, he said. You should have kept him out of sight. You should have taken him from me. Is he injured anywhere? Injured? I cried angrily. If he is not killed, he'll be an idiot. What? Oh, I wonder that his mother does not rise from the grave to see how you use him. You're worse than a heathen, treating your own flesh and blood in that manner. He attempted to touch the child, who, on finding himself with me, sobbed off his terror directly. At the first finger his father laid on him, however, he shrieked again louder than before, and struggled as if he would go into convulsions. You shall not meddle with him, I continued. He hates you. They all hate you. I think just for some reason Nellie was short for Ellen, but it's the same length. Anywho. Boo boo, where am I? They all hate you. That's the truth. A happy family you have, and a pretty state you are come to. I shall come to a prettier yet, Nellie, laughed the misguised man, recovering his hardness. At present, convey yourself and him away. And hark you, Heathcliff. Clear you two, quite from my reach and hearing. I wouldn't murder you tonight unless perhaps I set the house on fire, but that's as my fancy goes. While saying this, he took a pint bottle of brandy from the dresser and poured some into a tumbler. Nay, don't, I entreated. Mr. Hindley, do take warning. Have mercy on this unfortunate boy if you care nothing for yourself. Anyone will do better for him than I shall, he answered. Have mercy on your own soul, I said, endeavoring to snatch the glass from his hand. Not I. On the contrary, shall have the greatest pleasure in sending it to perdition to punish its maker, exclaimed the blasphemer. Here's to its hearty damnation. He drank the spirits and impatiently bade us go, terminating his command with a sequel of horrid imprecations too bad to repeat or remember. It's a pity he cannot kill himself with drink, observed Heathcliff, muttering an echo of curses back when the door was shut. He's doing his very utmost, but his constitution defies him. Mr. Kenneth says he would wager his mare that he'll outlive any man on this side of Gimmerton, and go to the grave a hoary sinner, unless some happy chance out of common course befall him. I went into the kitchen and sat down to lull my little lamb to sleep. Heathcliff, as I thought, walked through to the barn. It turned out afterwards that he only got as far as the other side of the settle, when he flung himself on a bench by the wall, removed from the fire, and remained silent. I was rocking Hareton on my knee and humming a song that began. It was far in the night in the bairnies grat, the mither beneath the moles heard that. When Miss Cathy, who had listened to the hubbub from her room, put her head in and whispered, Are you alone, Nellie? Yes, miss, I replied. She entered and approached the hearth. I, supposing she was going to say something, looked up. The expression of her face seemed disturbed and anxious. Her lips were half asunder as if she meant to speak, and she drew a breath, but it escaped in a sigh instead of a sentence. I resumed my song, not having forgotten her recent behavior. Where's Heathcliff? She said, interrupting me. At his work in the stable, was my answer. He did not contradict me. Perhaps he had fallen into a doze. There followed another long pause, during which I perceived a drop or two trickle from Catherine's cheek to the flags. Is she sorry for her shameful conduct? I asked myself. That will be a novelty, but she may come to the point as she will. I shan't help her. No, she felt small trouble regarding any subject, save her own concerns. Oh dear, she cried at last, I'm very unhappy. A pity, observed I. You're hard to please. So many friends and so few cares, and can't make yourself content. Ellie, will you keep a secret for me? She pursued, kneeling down by me and lifting her winsome eyes to my face, with that sort of look which turns off bad temper, even when one has all the right in the world to indulge it. Is it worth keeping? I inquired less sulkily. Yes, and it worries me, but I must let it out. I want to know what I should do. Today, Edgar Linton has asked me to marry him, and I've given him an answer. Now, before I tell you whether it was a consent or denial, you tell me which it ought to have been. Really, Miss Catherine, how can I know? I replied. To be sure, considering the exhibition you performed in his presence this afternoon, I might say it would be wise to refuse him. Since he asked you after that, he must either be hopelessly stupid or a venturesome fool. If you talk so, I won't tell you any more, she returned, peevishly rising to her feet. I accepted him, Nellie. Be quick and say whether I was wrong. She just did. I don't have any more water. Oh, I do. Okay. You accepted him? Then what good is discussing the matter? You have pledged your word and cannot retract. But say whether I should have done so. Do, she exclaimed in an irritated tone, chafing her hands together and frowning. There are many things to be considered before that question can be answered properly, I said sententiously. Too many T's. Sententiously. First and foremost, do you love Mr. Edgar? Who can help it? Of course I do, she answered. Then I put her through the following catechism. Don't know if that's right. For a girl of 22, it was not injudicious. Why do you love him, Cathy? Oh my God, she's 22? Ah, she's older than me. That's strange. Nonsense, I do. That's sufficient. By no means, but you must say why. Well, because he is young, because he is handsome and pleasant to be with. Bad, was my commentary. And because he is young and cheerful? Bad still. And because he loves me? Indifferent coming there. And he will be rich, and I shall like to be the greatest woman of the neighborhood, and I shall be proud of having such a husband. Worst of all. And now, say how you love him. As everybody loves. You're silly, Nellie. Not at all. Answer. I love the ground under his feet and the air over his head and everything he touches and every word he says. I love all his looks and all his actions and him entirely and altogether. There now. And why? Nay, you are making a jest of it. It is exceedingly ill-natured. It is no jest to me, said the young lady, scowling and turning her face to the fire. Very far from jesting, Miss Catherine, I replied. You love Mr. Edgar because he is handsome and young and cheerful and rich and loves you. The last, however, goes for nothing. You would love him without that, probably, and with it you wouldn't, unless he possessed the 4 former attractions. Okay. Not to be sure. I should only pity him. Hate him, perhaps, if he were ugly and a clown. Oh no! Shiver all your ages, just like, I feel like this happened before. Specifically with Star Wars ages. Okay, let's see. Did you guys know? Did y'all? That's a phrase. Did y'all know that both Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds were 19 when they did their star-making turn in Singin' in the Rain / Star Wars? That's pretty impressive. Okay, where were I? Okay, this is a Nelly. Okay, here we go. No, we just ended with a clown. There are several other handsome young men in the world, handsomer possibly and richer than he is. What should hinder you from loving them? If there be any, they are out of my way. I've seen none like Edgar. You've seen, this is like in The Tempest when Miranda's like, you are the hottest man I've ever seen. And then everyone is like, you are the only man you've ever seen. Let's see. You may see some, and he won't always be handsome and young, and he may not always be rich. He is now, and I have only to do with the present. I wish you would speak rationally. Well, that settles it. If you have only to do with the present, marry Mr. Linton. I don't want your permission for that. I shall marry him, and yet you have not told me whether I'm right. Perfectly right, if people be right to marry only for the present. And now let us hear what you are unhappy about. Your brother will be pleased. The old lady and gentleman will not object. I think you will escape from a disorderly, comfortless home into a wealthy, respectable one. And you love Edgar, and Edgar loves you. All seems smooth and easy. Where is the obstacle? Here and here, replied Catherine, striking one hand on her forehead and the other on her breast. In whichever place that soul lives. In my soul, in my heart, I'm convinced I'm wrong. That's very strange. I cannot make it out. What's happening? Oh my gosh. It's my secret, but if you will not mock at me, I'll explain it. I can't do it distinctly, but I'll give you a feeling of how I feel. She seated herself by me again, and her countenance grew sadder and graver, and her clasped hands trembled. Nellie, do you never dream queer dreams? She said suddenly, after some minutes' reflection. Yes, now and then, I answered. And so do I. I've dreamt in my life dreams that have stayed with me ever after and changed my ideas. They've gone through and through me like wine through water and altered the color of my mind. And this one, I'm going to tell it, but take care not to smile at any part of it. Oh, don't, Miss Catherine, I cried. We're dismal enough without conjuring up ghosts and visions to perplex us. Come, come, be merry and like yourself. Look at little Hareton. He is dreaming nothing dreary. How sweetly he smiles in his sleep. Yes, and how sweetly his father curses in his solitude. You remember him, I dare say, when he was just such another as that chubby thing, nearly as young and innocent. However, Nellie, I shall oblige you to listen. It's not long, and I've no power to be married tonight. I won't hear it. I won't hear it, I repeated hastily. I was superstitious about dreams then, and am still, and Catherine had an unusual gloom in her aspect that made me dread something from which I might shape a prophecy and foresee a fearful catastrophe. She was vexed, but she did not proceed. Apparently taking up another subject, she recommenced in a short time. If I were in heaven, Nellie, I should be extremely miserable. But you are not fit to go there, I answered. All sinners would be miserable in heaven. Oh my God. It's so funny. This is like Wuthering Heights, more like passive aggressive heights. Or it's just something weird on the bottom of my cup. It wasn't there yesterday, and now I'm really nervous. What's happening? Anyways, I've just drunk something I don't think I was supposed to drink. No good. Okay, where was I? Okay. She was vexed, but she did not proceed. Apparently taking up another subject, she recommenced in a short time. Oh, wait, never mind. We already did that. All sinners would be miserable in heaven. But it is not for that. I dreamt once that I was there. I tell you, I won't hearken to your dreams, Miss Catherine. I'll go to bed, I interrupted again. She laughed and held me down, for I made a motion to leave my chair. This is nothing, cried she. I was only going to say that heaven did not seem to be my home, and I broke my heart with weeping to come back to earth. And the angels were so angry that they flung me out into the middle of the heath on the top of Wuthering Heights, where I woke sobbing for joy. That will do to explain my secret, as well as the other. I've no more business to marry Edgar Linton than I have to be in heaven. And if the wicked man in there had not brought Heathcliff so low, I shouldn't have thought of it. It would degrade me to marry Heathcliff now. So he shall never know how I love him. And that, not because he's handsome, Nellie, because he's more myself than I am. Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same, and Linton's is as different as moonbeam from lightning or frost from fire. Hoofda. What a wow. Let's just let's but because he's more myself than I am. That's heavy. Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same. Wow. Wow. Okay. Um, Ere this speech ended, I became sensible of Heathcliff's presence. Having noticed a slight movement, I turned my head and saw him rise from the bench and steal out noiselessly. Oh no. Oh no. He had listened till he heard Catherine say it would degrade her to marry him, and then he stayed to hear no farther. Well, I don't blame him. But also, she was about to say some really nice stuff. Okay. My companion, sitting on the ground, was prevented by the back of the settle from remarking his presence or departure, but I started and bade her hush. Why? She asked, gazing nervously round. Why, no. Why Shrek? I feel the Shrek, but I can't know why. The Shrek situation? Oh no. That's how we classify literature. Is this or is this not a Shrek situation? I'm a Shrek major, actually. I've majored in Shrek. Okay. Joseph is here, I answered, catching opportunely the roll of his cartwheels up the road. And Heathcliff will come in with him. I'm not sure whether he were not at the door at this moment. Oh, he couldn't overhear me at the door, said she. Give me Hareton while you get the supper, and when it is ready, ask me to sup with you. I wanted to cheat my uncomfortable conscience, and be convinced that Heathcliff has no notion of these things. He has not, has he? He does not know what being in love is. I see no reason that he should not know as well as you, I returned. And if you are his choice, he'll be the most unfortunate creature that ever was born. As soon as you become Mrs. Linton, he'll lose friend, love, and all. Have you considered how you'll bear the separation, and how he'll bear to be quite deserted in the world? Because Miss Catherine, quite deserted, we separated, she exclaimed. With an accent of indignation. Who is to separate us, pray? They'll meet the fate of Milo. I don't know who that is. Someone who's smarter than me. Explain it. Not as long as I live, Ellen, for no mortal creature. Every Linton on the face of the earth might melt into nothing before I could consent to forsake Heathcliff. Oh, that's not what I intend. That's not what I mean. I shouldn't be Mrs. Linton were such a price demanded. He'll be as much to me as he has been all his lifetime. Edgar must shake off his antipathy and tolerate him at least. He will when he learns my true feelings towards him. Hey, honey, I want to marry you, but I'm also in love with someone else. So can you just, be chill with him? Nellie, I see now you think me a selfish wretch, but did it never strike you that if Heathcliff and I married, we should be beggars? Whereas if I marry Linton, I can aid Heathcliff to rise and place him out of my brother's power. Oh, hun. With your husband's money, Miss Catherine? I asked. You'll find him not so pliable as you calculate upon, and though I'm hardly a judge, I think that's the worst motive you've given yet for being the wife of young Linton. It is not, she retorted. It is the best. The others were the satisfaction of my whims, and for Edgar's sake, too, to satisfy him. This is for the sake of one who comprehends in his person my feelings to Edgar and myself. I cannot express it, but surely you and everybody have a notion that there is or should be an existence of yours beyond you. What were the use of my creation if I were entirely contained here? My great mini... Someone said my great mini-series. My mind was just like, that's definitely miniseries. And this book written in 1770, certainly a miniseries. Um, my great miseries in this world have been Heathcliff's miseries, and I watched and felt each from the beginning. My great thought in living is himself. If all else perished and he remained, I should still continue to be, and if all else remained and he were annihilated, the universe would turn to a mighty stranger. I should not seem a part of it. My love for Linton is like the foliage in the woods. Time will change it, I'm well aware, as winter changes the trees. My love for Heathcliff resembles the internal rocks beneath, a source of little visible delight, but necessary. Nellie, I am Heathcliff. He's always, always in my mind, not as a pleasure any more than I am always a pleasure to myself, but as my own being. So don't talk of our separation again. It is impractical, and she paused and hid her face in the folds of my gown. But I jerked it forcibly away. I was out of patience with her folly. This is the one time this person has ever been kind, but also is like still 100% self-serving. Okay. If I can make any sense of your nonsense, miss, I said, it only goes to convince me that you are ignorant of the duties you undertake in marrying, or else that you are a wicked, unprincipled girl. But trouble me with no more secrets. I'll not promise to keep them. Good Lord. You'll keep that? She asked eagerly. No, I'll not promise, I repeated. She was about to insist when the entrance of Joseph finished our conversation, and Catherine removed her seat to a corner and nursed Hareton while I made the supper. After it was cooked, my fellow servant and I began to quarrel who should carry some to Mr. Hindley, and we didn't settle it till all was nearly cold. Then we came to the agreement that we would let him ask if he wanted any, for we feared particularly to go into his presence when he had been some time alone. Oh, God. It's Joseph speaking, so I have to, do big translating. And how is it now? Comed in from the field be this time. Go. And how is it that not comed in through the field be this time? What is he about? Girt Edel's seat. I don't know, demanded the old man, looking round for Heathcliff. I'll call him, I replied. He's in the barn, I've no doubt. I'm going to sneeze. Oh, excuse me. What's his face inspired something in me. Don't look at me. Hold on. It's just, I'm still here just cleaning my schnoz. Schnoz cleaning. Keep your nose clean. I'm so, bye. Okay. I've escaped. All right. Which one? I'm thinking. I kind of want to do the Tom Hardy one, but I'm conflicted. Because it looks like a TV adaptation. Hello. Okay, where did I go? He's in the barn, I've no doubt. I went and called, but got no answer. On returning, I whispered to Catherine that he had heard a good part of what she said, I was sure, and told how I saw him quit the kitchen just as she complained of her brother's conduct regarding him. She jumped up in a fine fright, flung Hareton onto the settle, and ran to seek for her friend herself, not taking leisure to consider why she was so flurried, or how her talk would have affected him. She was absent such a while that Joseph proposed we should wait no longer. He cunningly conjectured that they were staying away in order to avoid hearing his protracted blessing. They were ill enough for only foul manners, he affirmed, and on their behalf he added that night a special prayer to the usual quarter of an hour's supplication before meat, and would have tacked another to the end of the grace, had not his young mistress broken in upon him with a hurried command that he must run down the road, and wherever Heathcliff had rambled, find and make him re-enter directly. "I want to speak with him, and I must before I go upstairs," she said. "And the gate's open. He is somewhere out of hearing, for he would not reply, though I shouted at the top of the fold as loud as I could." Joseph objected at first. She was too much in earnest, however, to suffer contradiction, and at last he placed his hat on his head and walked grumbling forth. Okay, hold on. There's 3 pages left. When I say 3, I mean 1. And we've done 5. But I think I should return to my mother. Okay. I would do the rest, but I made a promise to my mom, and I also have a meeting tonight. So I'm gonna stop there for today, wherever we are, whenever we are. Shakira, anyone? We never finished Wally. That's why I was like in the middle of Wally, and I was like, Eve kind of reminds me of Cathy. And then I was like, speaking of Cathy, where am I right now? Okay, so that's all for today. And I will see you tomorrow here, same time, same. Yes, tomorrow's Thursday. Okay, cool. All right, that is all I have for you. Thank you for tuning in as usual. Oh. And I will see you tomorrow at 3. Oh my God, it's 4. Wow. Okay. All right. I gotta go. Bye. Goodbye.